Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this edition of Social Security Talk. I'm your co-host, Marc, blue sweater, and located in Cincinnati, Ohio, joined by my partner in crime, Jim Blair. Hello, Jim.
Hello.
How's everything in your neck of the woods?
It's nice and sunny today for the end of February. It's pretty warm, so I'll take it.
It's been the 70s lately, hasn't it?
Sure has.
This our podcast, as you probably know, because I'm sure you've listened to several by now, is sponsored by the National Social Security Advisor Certificate Program. Jim and I created our certificate program back in 2013, and we cover situational Social Security and how to ask those probing questions so clients get more money out of the Social Security system. Advisors can take our class one of three ways: live in person, Cleveland, Chicago, Kansas City, and Cincinnati this year, live webinars, and taped on-demand videos. And you can find out more information about our classes at our website, premiernssa.com. That's Nancy Sam Apple. So that's premiernssa.com. Send me an email, mkiner, Kiner, at mypremierplan.com, or just give me a direct phone call. My direct line is 513-218-8505. Now we have all that fun stuff out of the way. I want to introduce our guest, John Manganaro. Am I close on that, John?
Manganaro, yep, that was it.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. John is with thinkadvisor.com, which has recently been purchased by ALM. ALM, as you may know, is the publisher of the 2024 and previous editions of the Social Security Medicare Facts book, which Jim and I are contributing authors. We are not the main authors, are we, Jim?
No, don't want to be the main authors for that book. It's a big one, covers a lot of stuff, but we do contribute some information. I think it's pretty good stuff.
1,000 pages, Jim, 1,000 questions or so on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid related topics. If we were the main authors, Jim, you and I would have to take a lot of time away from what we do, teach our Social Security classes. John, welcome to the Social Security Talk podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, it's great to be here. I love talking about Social Security, so this seems like a great setting. My reporting, focuses on all things retirement, and obviously here in the United States, Social Security is that third leg of the retirement savings stool, as it's often put. So it's great to be here. Looking forward to chatting with you a little bit about what I do. I would just say, it's great to be connected under that ALM banner. I've been with the organization for about 18 months now, after being at a prior publication for about 10 years. So this is really, retirement is really much in my wheelhouse. And yeah, it's great to be here.
Now, John, there's another publication out there, I won't mention their name, and they have retirement in their name, and they don't cover Social Security anymore. They have a new editor.
Yeah. And
this editor's been there, I'm going to say 6 to 9 months. I don't know for sure. But now the number of Social Security articles or topics is just so low.
Right.
I don't think I see any anymore, which is really just too bad.
Yeah,
and when I called him on it, the editor, he really didn't say anything. So he referred me to one of his writers. So anyway, John, let's talk about, first of all, who is or what is thinkadvisor.com and what's the relationship with ALM?
Yeah, so to put it simply, ALM is the owner and publisher of thinkadvisor.com, and ThinkAdvisor is a daily news website. We cover the financial markets broadly. We have a team of about 7 or 8 reporters, working full time on covering everything that is of interest to the professional financial planning community. My particular role is to cover the retirement beat. So that's why Social Security is an important topic for me. But I also write about retirement income planning in general. I spend a lot of time, reading the latest research about income planning, all the Monte Carlo stuff, the flexible guardrails research that's really been interesting lately. But we have reporters on the team that cover compliance and regulation. My colleague Melanie Waddell is based in Washington, so she covers everything going on in Washington, from the perspective of the financial planning community. My other colleague, Allison Bell, she covers the insurance and annuity side of things. Dinah, she covers more of the markets, the ins and outs of what's going on in the stock market and all of that. So it's really, we try to take a holistic perspective to informing, the financial planning community. I will say that lately the retirement-oriented coverage has been doing very well. And I think that has to do with the demographic trends that are happening in our country. We're at peak 65. That term's often thrown around. I think it's something like 11,000 or 12,000 people turning 65 every day. So it's a good time to be a retirement reporter. I can tell you that.
Well, John and Jim may agree with me on this one. There were of the three people on this screen, two of them are over age 65. Am I right, Jim?
That would be correct.
So I turned 68 a couple of weeks ago, maybe. I'm guessing. Yeah, probably 2 weeks ago. Jim, you're a little older than I am. Not much, though, right?
I'm a little north of 68, just a little bit, a little more than I would be willing to admit. But, the thing about retirement, and when I first got into this business with Social Security as an employee there, I was pretty young. I was in my 20s. Retirement wasn't even something I was thinking about, but yet it gets here. So it's something everybody needs to know and consider, even at those young ages in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. You need to start planning for retirement because it does get here. I mean, think about how, if you look 10, 20 years in the future, that seems like a long way off. But if you think about 10 or 20 years in the past, it just was last week, it seems like. So time does go by. Hold still for no one. And retirement is going to be such an important thing. When you reach that age, you don't want, if you want to work, that's great, but you don't want to have to work. So retirement and what you're doing, John, is so important for everybody.
I appreciate that. It's one of the great pleasures of my job is getting to speak with people all along that journey, right? And really try. I think the best thing I can do is encourage younger people to think about it, like you're saying, Jim, and encourage people to, consider contributing, to your 401k a little bit more. Pay down your toxic debts while you're young, so you can deploy money to your retirement accounts early, so that you can take advantage of the power of compounding. These are incredibly important, especially with the questions out there about, the future of the Social Security program. I'm a firm believer that the program, is here to stay. All the experts I talk to, believe that Congress will be able to find a solution to the funding gap. But, really the only true hedge we have right now is to save a little bit more and really try to empower yourself. So that's a message that I try to focus on in my coverage, for sure.
We do remember when IRAs came into existence back in 1974. And that's because I was in college at the time. College? No. Well, at that time I was in high school. But I remember in college, though, I wrote a paper on the ERISA law, which covered IRAs. And I remember I've been funding that my IRA every year for a long time, and it builds up. It adds up. So let's get back to Social Security. No, Jim and I are the contributing authors to the Social Security book. I contribute some questions, some answers, but Jim's the main guy. He contributes a whole bunch of case studies. Right, Jim?
Right. I try to cover all the situations out there. I'm sure I miss a few, but, looking at the situations that folks can be in. Are they married? Are they single? Do they have a deceased spouse in their past? That kind of thing. Are there children involved? All sorts of things for folks to take into consideration. So we try to do the case studies so people can look at those and see, hey, that applies to me. So maybe I do need to think about this and plan ahead for my future. It's interesting doing those case studies and just seeing how they work out.
Hey, Jim, you prepared fewer case studies for the 2024 book, right?
That's true. We had some changes in the law a few years ago. It's 2015. I think the law was passed. See, there goes again. That's been almost 10 years now. But some of the options that people used to have are gone. Those were nice options. I loved them. I was upset when they did away with them because it really helped the average citizen be able to plan and receive Social Security benefits, and in the end, receive a higher monthly benefit amount. But they're gone, so we have to deal with what we have. Still, people have their own unique situations. Everybody's situation is different. You can't do something because your neighbor did it. You have to do it that fits your situation and figure out a way to maximize your benefit based on your the way it is you have it at home, your particular situation, and all the things involved.
So Jim is referring to the claim and suspend strategy and the restricted application strategy. Now, John, recently you wrote an article for Think Advisor on one of Jim's case studies. How did that article go, and how well received has it been?
Yeah, so the reception has been amazing, and I think it goes to Jim's point that every Social Security claiming situation is unique and needs to be looked at in detail. With the earnings history, with longevity projections, all of these things have a potentially very significant effect on one's lifetime benefit, as the two of you well know. What I often hear this phrase that when and how a couple claims Social Security is the biggest financial decision they make in their lifetime. And I think the response to the articles that we've published about the case studies underscore that. We've not only has the traffic been good, but on LinkedIn, for example, I'm getting really fascinating messages from professional financial planners just saying things like, oh, I didn't realize that in this particular case, it's better to file at 67 instead of 70. I think the one case study that comes to mind, Jim, was with sort of the high earning husband with a spouse who did not have an earning history of her own. I think the names are Bruce and Debbie, if I'm remembering correctly. But that was really fascinating because so often we hear that delaying Social Security until 70 is almost always the best thing to do. But as you showed, Jim, in this particular case, with the given longevity assumptions and the fact that the one spouse did not have her own benefit to claim, it turns out that it's best for this couple to file at 67. It generated, I think, $15,000 of excess lifetime wealth. So not a huge jump in wealth over the claiming scenario at age 70, but that's still meaningful nonetheless. And particularly important is seeing the difference between claiming at 62 at that initial age versus 67 or 70. That's where you see throughout the case studies the big jumps in lifetime wealth. I mean, I think one of the case studies I looked at, the difference between optimal and suboptimal claiming for this couple was like $200,000 or $250,000 in retirement wealth. I mean, that's a lot of money. That can be the difference between living, a very difficult life in retirement or meeting all your goals and legacy goals as well. So that's what. Oh yeah, Mark.
Okay. Well, Jim and I always talk about the percentage of the average retiree that waits until age 70. Jim, what's that figure?
Yeah, it's fairly low. It's 5 to 7% of the folks wait to age 70. Obviously, 70 gets you the most amount of money monthly that you can receive from Social Security. I will point out, because there are some people who wait, there's no reason to delay past age 70. You will not receive any more from Social Security by waiting. So you're only giving money away by waiting. But that said, the difference in the benefit amount from 62 to 70 is about a 75% increase in your benefit. That's the good news. What's the bad news? Well, you're waiting 8 years to collect it. So one of the things that these scenarios point out is there is a break-even point. Most people, if with average life expectancy, will reach that break-even point and more. But still, as the example you were pointing out, the break-even point when your spouse isn't eligible for Social Security themselves and they're waiting on you to file, it's more like 18 years. So that's a little tougher. There are scenarios where 62 is the optimal time, but that's usually when there's a pretty good difference in the ages with the couples. So a lot of good things to think about.
Yeah,
we know. Go ahead, John.
Oh, just I mentioned before that we've gotten a lot of really good audience feedback on these articles, and so much of that feedback has tied into this question of longevity, because we're at a point where, people are living longer, and particularly the people who tend to work with our professional financial advisor audience. The simple truth is they tend to be a little wealthier, and folks at that higher income quintile, they have even greater excess longevity. So that's been, I think the professional advisor community is out there right now grappling with this question of longevity and how it feeds into this, the Social Security claiming decision, because it's obviously very important.
And not only that, but the clients of advisors are probably just a little healthier than the average.
Yeah.
So it's more likely they may wait until age 70. Maybe it's going to be more than maybe 5 to 7%.
Yeah.
No, I'm John. I'm single. Everybody that's listened to our podcast knows that. I began my benefit at my full retirement age, which was age 66 and 4 months, June of 2022. I could have waited to age 70, but there was really no reason for me to wait. Nobody's going to collect off me when I'm gone. And believe me, John, the third Wednesday of every month, I wake up with an extra skip in my step. My money is in my bank account.
Yeah. What's really? I just think to me, it's a related topic to Social Security, but something I've been writing a lot about lately is helping people feel confident in spending as well. There's a lot of people that have spent a lifetime working hard, saving diligently. They get to that retirement period and they're afraid to spend. So I think getting the Social Security decision right is important from that perspective as well. It gives you that confidence. You have that guaranteed income. You can then, think more freely about how to both invest and spend any other assets you might have saved. I think something that really gives me pause is when I hear from advisors that their clients they could be perfectly comfortable spending, and living happily in retirement, but they're just afraid. That primary emotion they feel in retirement is fear. And personally, I hope that, with the knowledge I'm able to gain through my career, that I'll be able to kind of enjoy retirement, as it sounds like. Well, you're not retired, Mark, but
John, you've got a little ways to go. I tend to believe.
Yes.
I'm a little closer to ending my earned income opportunities. It's still going to be there for a little while, but eventually, though, Jim and I would just ride off into the sunset. And so, my biggest fear today is not really, my main goal is to accumulate retirement assets.
Yeah.
It's pure and simple. That's what I'm trying to do. Yeah. Because if my income ends, let's say in 5 years, then that's basically going to be it. So I need to work on that. John, a big question Jim and I receive centers around spousal benefits. Because we know that, we all know that for, let's just say, a wife is the lower earner, for her to collect off the husband must be receiving a benefit. You'd be surprised how many questions we get from our advisors about spousal benefits. Is that a topic you're right on?
Yeah, it is for sure. And I think, for example, the difference between spousal benefits and survivor benefits is an incredibly important distinction that advisors really need to understand. We talked earlier about this dynamic that if one spouse has a high benefit and the other spouse really doesn't have her own or his own earnings history, then they cannot get their own benefit until the primary earner files. And that really has a big impact on the math. I guess those are the questions you hear from advisors, right? Like how, when can we file? How do these different benefits work together? So I would say that the question I hear most about is the difference between spousal and survivor benefits and how those two things kind of play together. Perhaps the most important point to make, and you probably agree with this, Mark and Jim, that in the context of a married couple, it's just incredibly important to think about both members of the couple and both members' longevity. And you can't, just because one member of the couple has that higher earnings, it doesn't mean that you only think about them when you file. You have to think about it in a systemic way and really, tease through how the spousal benefit will kick in, what the survivor benefit might look like. So, it's not simple. It really takes some level of analysis to get through.
I know go ahead, Jim.
I was just going to say, a lot of people think about the spousal part of it. The survivor end is the one that folks tend to forget about and not take into consideration. When I was taking claims with Social Security, oftentimes you would have a couple they would file for benefits, not thinking about survivor benefits, and taking it early does affect those survivor benefits. But things were fine at that point. Then one would pass away. You would tell their surviving spouse what their benefit is, and they would look at you and say, but that's not enough money. And at that point, it's too late. We don't want to think about our mortality, but we need to, at least for a few minutes, when you're thinking about your Social Security, and consider what you're doing and the effect that's going to have, because eventually it will get to the point where one individual in the couple will receive the survivor benefit. How important is that? If they have other ways of income, other sources of income set up, that's fine. But consider how important is Social Security in that planning, and that will help determine when you file for benefits as well.
Yeah, and when you look at the statistics about survivorship, amongst healthy couples at 65, I might be getting the numbers wrong off the top of my head, but the chances of at least one of those one member of that couple living into their early to mid 90s is high right now. If you're healthy at 65, it's very likely, it's greater than 50% that at least one member of that couple is going to live past 92, and that just speaks to what we were saying, that survivor benefit is going to potentially be incredibly important.
Yeah, and it's a pretty good percentage of the number that will live past 95 as well. So Social Security is a lifetime benefit, regardless of what you hear on TV or listen to on the radio. Once you start to receive it, you'll receive it the rest of your life. Then if your spouse steps into your shoes when you pass, they'll receive it for the rest of their life, the survivor benefit. So with people living longer, it's real important to take that into account.
Yeah.
Another hot topic, John, that we talk about in the class, of course, and also get questions on, relates to divorced spouses. Is that a frequent article of yours, or really not frequent, but something you write on?
Yeah, certainly. Most of the coverage I've done about the topic of divorce has more been about the need to empower primarily women who, leave a couple or leave a married relationship, and they realize that, wow, I don't really understand the family's finances. I don't know what I'm entitled to. I don't know how my Social Security benefit will work in the future. So that the coverage that I think has been important is, helping financial advisors realize that's a group that really needs support. There's a tremendous need for insight and sort of guidance during that divorce situation. But speaking specifically to Social Security, it's also a very important topic. I think there's probably a lot of people out there who maybe have been in a relationship and maybe don't realize that they do potentially have access to a benefit based on their ex-spouse's earnings history. I think if I'm right off the top of my head, a marriage has to have lasted for 10 years, right? And then there are certain rules about how you can get remarried and when benefits will be affected. So, we keep returning to the theme that it's complicated. You need to do the analysis.
We have pure and simple. If you're trying to collect off your ex-spouse and you just get remarried, those benefits off your ex will end. Right. So you have to be single to collect off of a living ex-spouse, but you could be married to collect off of a deceased ex-spouse as long as you got remarried after attaining age 60. Definitely.
Right.
John, can you go to your website? We'd like to see how people can they subscribe to articles, or what does your website look like? So I'm going to go ahead and make you a host, okay?
Sure.
I don't think I need to do that. I think you can probably just go there on your own.
I think I can share the screen here, and
you guys. Okay, I don't know if I know how to do that.
Yep, you'll get a sense as well of how busy a morning can be as a reporter with all my tabs open here. But let me share the entire screen.
It's okay.
Yeah, so I think you guys can see that now.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Yeah, so I'll just go here, pick a random tab here, and go to take us all to Think Advisor. As you can see, it's a traditional news website. We have a design that I think is pretty elegant. It really puts the attention on the faces and the headlines of the stories here. So we always have a top story for the day. I'd particularly encourage people to, number one, check out the spotlight section of the website where sort of the most important breaking daily news is happening. And of course, we have a popular section over here. And as you guys can see right here, I think the text might be a little small, but this was an article, a column I did actually recently, speaking to some of the case studies, and this one is the big risk lurking in your, or is this big risk lurking in your Social Security math? And as you can see, it was talking about longevity, because this was a really interesting comment that came in from a reader that was basically, complimenting the math on one of the case studies where we showed that 67 is the better claiming age. But this was this person also, suggested that, remember that people might live past 92 or 95. And if you're, assuming an 87 or an 89 life expectancy, that can lead to different conclusions in terms of optimal savings. So, as I was saying before, the Social Security coverage is doing particularly well. I'd also, encourage folks to explore this section of the website, because this is where you can really dig into different topics. If you're particularly interested in Social Security and retirement planning, that this is, where you'll want to go to the retirement section. We have it, organized under 4 different main headings: saving for retirement, retirement investing, spending in retirement, and then we actually, I think you'll appreciate this, Mark. We've got our own section devoted to Social Security, and that's not gonna change. So, yeah, it's a great website. As I said at the top of the call, I really love working for Think Advisor because of the great peers I get to work with as well. We have great editors. They're always elevating the content. My colleagues produce, really strong reporting. So it really motivates me to do the best work that I can. So it's really, I like to think it's a great website. I hope that folks who check it out will share that. So perhaps I'll stop sharing now, but yeah, it's great to spotlight it.
Or John, is this a subscription model?
All free. So our revenue is, to be clear, generated off of advertisements. So you will see, typical banner ads from all the big providers. But yeah, it's all free. We have, I guess I should also plug the newsletter section up here. We have daily. So we have our Daily Wire newsletter, which is really the important news stories of the day. We have weekend updates, particularly interesting. We have every day of the week, we have a different topic. So we rotate between tech, compliance, portfolio, retirement, and financial planning insider. So Tuesday mornings, the retirement newsletter goes out. You'll find a lot of my coverage in there. So I definitely encourage folks to subscribe to the newsletters.
So the website is thinkadvisor.com. I really wasn't.
Yep.
I was daydreaming a little bit. Okay.
Yeah, as you can see up here, just simple thinkadvisor.com, one word. It'll take you right to the homepage.
Okay, great. We've been listening to John Manganaro with Think Advisor. He is the senior reporter. He writes a lot on retirement planning. As you probably know, thinkadvisor.com is owned by ALM. ALM owns National Underwriter Company. And I guess National Underwriter Company is probably still the publisher for the Social Security Medicare Facts book, which Jim and I write on. But it gets a little confusing over time, definitely. Yep. John, I want to thank you so much for being on today's webinar. Do you have any final comments you'd like to make?
No, it's just that it's been a pleasure to get to know the two of you over the past, several months as we've been working to feature the case studies on thinkadvisor.com. We'll be publishing more of those throughout the year. So, please do check out the website if the nuances of Social Security claiming, are interesting to you, which probably is, considering that you're listening to this podcast. Please, follow the coverage. I'd also encourage folks, connect with me on LinkedIn.com. I'm on there all the time. I find it a great venue to have, informal back and forth discussions with folks who want to respond to the content we produce. I know that retirement is a complex topic. Social Security is a complex topic. So if you ever have feedback on any of my articles, positive or negative, drop me a line. I'm always happy to chat.
Jim, any final comments you'd like to make?
Well, John, I appreciate your interest in Social Security. I kind of stumbled into it when I got out of the Air Force. I was looking for a job, and my mother said, "Get a job with the government." Well, Social Security happened to be hiring. They picked me up. Turned out to be a good move on my part, and the interest in Social Security picked up from there. I want everybody to know about Social Security, and that's something you're doing, and I really appreciate that. So good job.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thanks, guys. This was a great conversation.
Well, folks, you've been listening to the Social Security Talk podcast, which is sponsored by the National Social Security Advisor Certificate Program. We offer our training 3 ways: live in-person class, live webinars, and taped on-demand videos. To get additional information about our classes, just go to our website, Premier NSSA, that's NancySamSamApple.com. Send me an email directly, mkiner, Kiner, at mypremierplan.com, or give me a direct phone call, 513-218-8505. Thanks so much for watching this edition of Social Security Talk. Bye, everybody.